I wanted to introduce our keynote speaker on leveraging analytics to optimize the distribution of $6 billion in grants. And with that, I wanted to welcome Brandon Lee, the Director General, CTO, Grants and Contributions Transformation at Global Affairs Canada.
Good morning, everyone. It's really great to be here. Just a quick question. How many of you were up late last night watching the baseball game? Okay. I'm a big ball fan, so it's great to be in this city at this time. But it's an honor to be with all of you because I actually consider all of us part of the same team, kind of the same tribe. We're all trying to improve public sector using data and technology. So I'm Brandon Lee. I'm the Director General at Global Affairs, leading the Grants and Contributions Transformation Initiative. Before this, I served as Canada's Consul General to the United States, based in both San Francisco and Seattle, and I was Canada's former ambassador to Silicon Valley. I was appointed and served our country for almost 8 years during the Trump's first term, and I finished in Biden's administration. So you could say I've had a serious boot camp in staying agile through change. So before I begin, I'll start with just a few minutes to set the context. So Global Affairs Canada is one of Canada's larger federal departments. We have 13,000 staff in 180 missions and embassies in 112 countries. We traditionally manage between $5 to $6 billion in grants and contributions. And just so we're on the same page, grants and contributions are two vehicles for distributing funding. So grants typically are unconditional. Contributions have specific terms and accountabilities associated. But for simplicity, today I'll just refer to everything as grants. So our grants from Global Affairs Canada, the $5 to $6 billion, we fund 1,600 projects per year with this. And these projects cover everything from international assistance, international aid, peace and security programming, and even support to Canadian exporters. So my mandate is to lead the biggest reform at Global Affairs to re-engineer all of our business processes and to build a new enterprise system to manage all grants. So we're actually going from 0 to 1, where we largely currently manage all grants manually. We are 2.5 years into a 6-year project. So we're almost halfway. And we're about to launch our enterprise system starting this December incrementally for the next 3 years. And for these remarks, I'm going to focus on data, automation, and AI. But what we are doing is much more than that. It's a full culture change. Basically transforming how we manage the entire multi-billion-dollar portfolio. And since we're talking about money and distributing money, foundational to this culture change at Global Affairs is our attitude towards risk. So I was successful in obtaining deputy minister and ministerial approval to change our attitude towards risk from a risk-averse to a risk-aware approach. So we can embrace smart risks to maximize our impact. And we're building this new system using an agile methodology and also a product-based methodology so that we can stay nimble and address our users and even the recipients' needs. And for any federal colleagues in the audience now, we'll be presenting this initiative, the Grants and Contributions Transformation Initiative, which we all like acronyms, so the GCTI. We'll be presenting this to all deputy ministers at a meeting called PSMAC, the Public Service Management Advisory Committee, which is a meeting once a month of every deputy minister in the federal government. So If anything I say today resonates or may be useful to you, an opportunity to accelerate your transformations at the federal level may be to plant a seed as we present to your Deputy Minister soon. So, now that I've set the stage, today I'll share, as I mentioned, how we are doing this through the lenses of data, automation, and AI, and I'll share some hard-earned lessons or two. As I mentioned, this is built in an agile, data-driven, data-informed decision-making process. So the first thing is data. We were successful in achieving one of our key milestones, where we have now, our Deputy Minister has mandated that all grant information across all 1,600 projects and programs must be visible on one platform. So this is what we lovingly call our single source of truth. So as mentioned, currently at Global Affairs, we manually process all of our grants. So this means the data, the documents are distributed across 180 missions and embassies and thousands of staff at our headquarters. So of course this slows decision making, and we have incomplete information. So a lot of our decision making is based on incomplete information, and it creates enormous administrative efforts for all of our staff. So moving forward in our single source of truth, every detail for a grant, what sector, what geography, what the risks, results, financial information, will be unified in our enterprise system, of course giving us clear insights and visibility across all programming on an almost evergreen basis. And as we know, this is the only way we can have a backbone for automation and AI. So just a quick aside, I've met many managers and senior managers at Global Affairs and other departments who look at their messy, incomplete data sets and say, garbage in, garbage out. How many of you have heard garbage in, garbage out for your data? And so we can't trust our data. But to me, when we do this, it's like throwing out the baby with the bathwater. And all of us in this room, we're the parents to this baby, so we have to give it love and nurture and raise this baby. So cleaning up our data, making it better and better, bit by bit, until it's trustworthy, this is what we call one source of truth. And with that, I'll talk now about our automation efforts. We want to give our staff and all our applicants that want to access the $5 to $6 billion a year their time back. So, because we are manual, the opportunities for efficiencies are enormous. When you look at just the scale of Global Affairs, we have thousands of project officers managing thousands of projects, and so the scale becomes apparent very quickly. So an example, we have an internal wiki where we explain to officers how to manage a grant process. My staff looked at how many pages our internal wiki has on all the permutations and options on how to manage a grant, and it's over 3,000 pages. So you can imagine a newly hired officer straight out of university. How are they even going to begin to understand 3,000 pages organized probably in a very corporate way and a non-user-friendly way? So with our automation, most of these 3,000 pages will actually become obsolete. Why? Because we're automating the process itself. But there are a lot of policy, there's a lot of advice inside these 3,000 pages. So in the system, we're going to deliver that exact sentence, that exact piece of advice as the officer is about to click a button, or as our system says this is a conflict, and it'll provide the advice needed at the right moment. So with our early launches that we've already done in the past 2.5 years, we've saved over 350 hours per project. So this is weeks of work that we've already been able to measure. And as I mentioned, we're going from a risk-averse to a risk-aware culture at Global Affairs. And this automation supports that, because now our officers can be freed from the administration and the searching for how to manage, to providing value-added work, to working with applicants, to becoming more strategic. Another feature of our automation and our data management is that we are asking for the right data at the right time. So some of you may have been the victims of Global Affairs processes in the past, but to be quite honest, we probably collect more information than we need, or more information than we can even handle currently. And we collect that information always at the start of the process. So during the proposal or the contract negotiation, we ask for every permutation and scenario. Instead, moving forward, we're going to use the system, use our AI and automation to ask for the data at the right time. So for example, if there's a fragile state and we have some peace and security programming, right now we ask every single question at the beginning, but if there's no election, maybe we won't ask what the election risk mitigation strategy is until an election is called, for example. And we won't ask for the same information twice. This sounds like common sense, but when things are manually managed, for example, at Global Affairs, we have 9 divisions and areas that are responsible for a piece of risk management, and they each have their own separate templates. So you can imagine an applicant or a recipient has to go through all these processes currently. And now the next area I'll speak to is our AI efforts. So we are using targeted AI to turn data into action. And the way we view AI at Global Affairs is that it's a tool to support officers and our recipients and beneficiaries. We know that there's enormous opportunity to unlock analyses and insights that were simply not available before. So, as I mentioned, with one unified single source of truth, with automated business processes, we're using very targeted and specifically tailored AI across the entire spectrum and our machine learning to unlock insights. One thing that we in public sector at Global Affairs are observing very closely is that in the private sector, it's clear in the past few years, broad or general AI sounds very sexy, but the business value in that has been more challenging to harness and to reap. But instead, we've seen that very targeted AI built for specific problems, trained on specific data sets, are where we're finding true value. So I'll give a few examples at Global Affairs. We've gone out, we've done deep feedback, user research, and we've built an AI because officers told us when they receive a proposal from an applicant, some of the financial lines can be 50 to 100 different lines on how the possible recipient would like to spend the grant money. There's almost very little opportunity for that officer to analyze every line, to see, is it within scope, does it track to past projects, etc. So what we've done is we've built an AI to scan all the proposals, look historically across tens of thousands of projects. we've built in geographic and project sensitivities to instantly flag budget line items, and it just turns them red when they go outside of a set parameter. This supports the officer. Instead of analyzing 100 lines, they can focus on the 4 that are highlighted to have a conversation with the applicant to understand further information. So an example of this is in a peace and security project. If there's a line on outreach consensus building and it's red flag because it's way lower than other projects that have succeeded in the past, maybe that's an opportunity to ask why that line item is so low. Another example is if there's a digital project or a digital web project, but it has a travel line item that is much larger than even in-house projects. That's again an example of where the officer can follow up. Another example of how we're using AI is in our enormous data migration efforts. So this is a project use of AI. So many of you may be familiar that before Global Affairs, we were 2 departments, Foreign Affairs and CIDA, the Canadian International Development Agency. Between the 2 departments, there are tens of millions of data points, all collected in different ways, different frameworks, and collected manually. So for example, all the work that we've done with Gates Foundation, I asked my officers to give me an example of how many Gates instances there are, and we have 18 different clients listed under Gates because they were all manually inserted. Gates Foundation, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Inc., et cetera, et cetera. So we built an AI to help with data scrubbing and our enormous data migration efforts. Of course, this detects duplication, it flags inconsistencies, and it identifies gaps, and it escalates to where we may need human intervention. So this is part of us nurturing our data baby at Global Affairs. And another example where we're harnessing a little more Gen AI is that we are using AI for contract creation. So of course, when we select a successful recipient, the contract negotiation begins. Currently, this is a manual process, and the contracting officer has to look at things like budget, scope, timelines, operating environments, compliance requirements, etc. And so when we do it manually, it takes between 6 to 8 hours in total, which is dispersed across a large period of time, but it takes 6 to 8 hours. With our Gen AI contract automation, our early launch tests already show that we do this now within 15 minutes. The next little section that I'll speak about are our lessons learned. For those of you in this room, and I hope it's the vast majority who are managing change and transformation initiatives, actually our biggest challenges in the GCTI have not been technology or culture change. It's been navigating our bureaucracy for project management, governance, and talent management, and skills management. So with regards to project management, generally speaking, project management and project oversight is largely based on waterfall project management, and it has challenges with both agile and product methodologies. So our workaround has been, we're working with Global Affairs and Treasury Board Secretariat colleagues to build new frameworks that are much better adapted to agile and product-based frameworks. With regards to governance, government loves governance, and any large change initiative, especially of the size that we're undertaking, necessarily needs oversight because it is taxpayers' dollars, and it needs support from senior management and deputy ministers. Having said which, the speed of decision-making required in if you can imagine, governance that goes to the deputy minister level is not fast enough for agile and product methodologies. And generally speaking, the skill set or experience or expertise needed with digital transformation is also not seen at senior management levels. So what we've done is we've tried to balance oversight with the agility needed. So what we've done is we've streamlined and framed the decisions that necessarily need to go to senior management, but we worked through endorsement and we retained the decision-making at the granular level at the Scrum team level. So we empower the Scrums in their 2-week Scrums to find their solution, and they're empowered to find the solution, speaking to users directly and simply build. And when they find a challenge, then we escalate to the right level to find the solution there. And then the final thing, and I'm moving fairly quickly, so if there are things that are of interest, I'm not sure if there'll be time at the end, but throughout the conference, I'm happy to dig deeper and speak together. But the final thing is around talent and skill management. Clearly, everything I've mentioned requires skills that largely are weak or light at Global Affairs Canada and in the government in general. So skills in digital, data, agile, cyber, product, UI, UX, etc. The other challenge that we have, of course, and many of you will have similar, are fixed and lengthy HR processes and recruitment processes. So what we've done is we've found workarounds where we can't just work within business as usual frameworks in the government. So we've leveraged a program called the Interchange program, where we've built an interdisciplinary team. So I've brought people straight from private sector with product and agile experience, and even from beneficiaries. So I have a manager from Plan Canada, for example, on the team through the Interchange program. I've also received blanket exemptions from Human Resources, working with our Deputy Minister, to be first in line with all of the HR processes and security screening. And I have priority standing on procurement activities as well. So procurement, finance, and HR, we have priority and are front of the line service. So the last part that I'll touch on before closing and possibly, hopefully opening up to questions is, so what's next? What does the future look like at Global Affairs? Basically, it's a granting system that is fast, bold, and built for impact. Our vision, as I mentioned, is we will have unified data, we've automated processes, and we're leveraging targeted specific AI across the entire spectrum of granting, which is creating a cultural revolution at Global Affairs, and not just a new system. Using an agile framework and product-based methodology, we will bring data-informed, evidence-based decisions to our senior management, supported by AI tools. Our risk-aware culture now will allow smart risk-taking with data as our guide. The other thing I want to mention is our scalability. So we're building this to scale across the entire federal government as the opportunity allows. So we intentionally are built on the Treasury Board Secretariat's EGCS. This is the Enterprise Grants and Contributions System, which is the standard for the federal government, and many departments are already using it. We are fully cloud-based, and we connect with the official finance system, which is SAP and S/4HANA, through APIs. Our entire system is built on the Microsoft platform. So Power Platform, SharePoint, Dataverse, the Microsoft Dataverse. And this is where largely the government is a Microsoft shop. So this allows scalability across the government. And coming back to data, the future vision is that we will allow for citizen development. So empowering non-technical programs and officers to build their own program tools and workflows tailored to what they need. So, for example, the democratization of innovation, allowing programs to create personalized dashboards, their own automated reporting, their own specialized analytics apps without heavy IT involvement. An example of that, for example, is perhaps the Peace and Security Program may wish to build their own interface to track possible terrorist affiliations. This we probably don't need to do with all 1,600 projects, so they can build that as long as it's aligned to our data framework and our data governance, we can allow citizen development. So with that, I see there are 6 minutes left. I'm very excited to see that Global Affairs has invested in this kind of innovation. It's been decades in the making. And as I mentioned, I'm happy to unpack some of these things throughout the next couple of days. And I'd love to make data the heart of Canada's public sector and bring our collective leadership and government innovation the pride of our countries, like the Toronto Blue Jays. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Brendan. So we do have time for questions. Yeah? We'll just have you just introduce yourself. Thanks.
Hi, Alan Ramsey. I do research in business intelligence at the region of Peel within Human Services. Just curious, since you're on a Microsoft stack for your AI purposes, are you leveraging Copilot, like Copilot Studio, or did you go into open source, other types of, Llama, that kind of thing?
It's a great question. So yes, at Global Affairs, we've launched an enterprise Copilot. We're also beta testing some of the more advanced iterations of it. So broadly speaking, it is the Copilot that we're leveraging, but for specific AI, we are looking at procuring or using external already trained tools as well. So we have the flexibility, fortunately, to do both.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. Any other questions?
Hi there. Congratulations on getting your front-of-the-line status around a bunch of those admin processes. I know that really helps things move fast. But only one person can get that front-of-the-line status. Otherwise, you'll bump back to second. So any observations about how we can scale that rather than kind of exception handling it?
That's a great question. So the other thing I didn't mention, and maybe we can double-click on your question to go a bit deeper, is that if some of you have project funding, as we know, security, especially cybersecurity and procurement, are largely understaffed. So as a support mechanism, I'm actually paying for an additional officer to provide that front-of-the-line service. And when they have capacity, because we don't do procurement 5 days a week, they can help other high-priority projects as well. So one way also is to provide some funding to bring some additional capacity to those functions, because let's be honest, we're living in an age of financial austerity for the next number of years. So that's another way to help special projects. Like, for example, the GCTI, we have been exempt from some of the cuts at the federal level because we have been identified as investing in creating future savings. So this kind of strategic projects hopefully have some funding that can be shared to other corporate functions to help their efficiency.
Yeah, nice. I also wrote down first in line as well, also intrigued in that concept. Any more questions? I think we have time for one more. Oh yeah, go ahead, thanks.
Thank you very much for a very insightful presentation. Actually, a question is that you mentioned about the data governance, that the citizen development should be within the global affair data governance. My question is about what approach are you also taking about the fair data, so the data that are fundable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable, and also the AI ethic, not just necessarily AI governance.
I didn't get the middle of your question. Could you just repeat that,
Well,
please?
your approach to the fair data that are findable, accessible, reusable, and interoperable.
Very good. Thank you. Definitely. So your question in 1 minute, I'll try to go through very quickly, but it's a big, important question. At Global Affairs, we're also a rotational department, so our diplomats change jobs every 1 to 4 years as well. So we've had to create an RBAC, a role-based access control for the entire department. And so depending on the role, they'll have different access to different types of data. But the entire platform, and it's an enormous undertaking, but from the start, to your point, has to be accessible, actually multilingual. All our searches are federated, so it accesses all types of data, even eventually into emails and other pockets of unstructured data. And what we're finding with the very narrow, specific AI, of course, we have to be always mindful of AI ethics, but with a very specific AI built on our security framework, it's aligning much easier and closer because the AI is trained to do one function, and with our role-based access controls, the people who get access to certain AI tools are properly fenced, if we can say in that way.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Please just go ahead one more.
Murad Ahmed from Elections Ontario. I was kind of curious because you mentioned that you use like Copilot and other kind of open source iterations. How do you deal with like privacy concerns and like privacy related problems because you're feeding it like, I'm not sure, like sensitive data, right? So like how does that work in this framework?
Absolutely. So that is something that even if you look into politics, the data security and sensitivity is one of our top concerns. So the way we do it is any external AI algorithm or tool that we use has to be hosted on GAC servers. So we don't, even though we're cloud-based within the GAC environment. So in this way, as we do our procurement, it has to be a white label or something that we can host and train, and they'll never get access to.
Thanks. All right. Thanks so much, Brendan. That was a lot of great info. We appreciate your time
Thank
as our
you.
keynote. Thanks.
Thank you.